rise up and take his command. We dey see them, we know they blind, oh. We must fight for our right, oh. Anyhow.
Thanks for staying with us. So, if Nigeria is going to be any better than it is now, from the song that Charlie Boy is just singing, I guess the first day of that one day is today, D-Day of the Abuja Council polls. And let's take a look at how the event unfolds across the capital city today. Festus Okoye joins us from our Abuja studio. He is INEC National Commissioner and he's in charge of information and voter education. Thank you for joining us this morning, Mr. Okoye. Well, all eyes on INEC again.
Yeah, good morning.
Good morning. All eyes on INEC again. How does it feel?
Oh, well, we are equal to the task. We've been doing this work for a pretty long time. So the election in the FCTs, the area council election, is already ongoing. We are confident in our processes and procedures. I think the people of the FCT should brace off for a very good election.
Well, INEC is the State Independent Electoral Commission in Abuja, as the National Assembly is the State Assembly in the capital city. How does it differ? How does your approach here differ from the general elections, the governorship elections and all that INEC conducts?
Well, you know that one of the issues and one of the challenges with election really rests with what we call the off-cycle elections or the standalone elections. This is because the eyes of the entire nation, the eyes of the international community are on only one election. So the implication is that when we are conducting an off-cycle election or off-season election, we are very, very careful and we try to prepare well because almost everybody focuses on this particular election. So for the FCT area council election, we prepared very, very well. This election will take place in the 6 area councils of the Federal Capital Territory, and then you also know that we have 62 electoral wards in the FCT. So we have prepared and we've prepared well. We released the timetable and schedule of activities for this particular election in April last year, and the political parties conducted their primaries between the 1st of April and 21st of April, and they started their campaigns in November. So we have prepared well. Almost all the litigations arising from the conduct of the party primaries have been determined. There were around 8 of them, and some of them were determined yesterday. So we are confident that with the level of work we have done and with the level of preparations we have made, that we are going to have a very good election.
You have 473 candidates sponsored by 14 political parties in this election, as your organization has released, more information that you released. But for you, there are those who have referenced previous elections, state governorship elections and all, and drawn lessons and said, okay, maybe if and when INEC is able to input some of these lessons learned, we can only get better at the things that we do. What would you say are some of those things that INEC has learned from the last 2 governorship elections in particular that have been imputed or corrected in this particular election?
Well, you know that this particular commission, we draw valuable lessons, as you pointed out, from previous elections, and we also try to improve with every election. Now, with the FCT area council election, one of the new issues is that we are also going to use the BVAS for the purposes of accreditation and accreditation of voters. And as we pointed out severally, even from the Anambra governorship election, the beavers reads the fingerprints, and if the fingerprint fails, it reads the facials of the voters. If the facials fails, it can also read the QR code at the on the voters register. So what we have done is to make sure that we expel the incident forms from our electoral process. So we are confident that only human beings, only registered voters, only persons who have one permanent voter's card will vote in the FCT area council election. Those who have multiple voters' cards and who have been entrepreneurs and traders in permanent voters' cards will not have an opportunity of voting in this particular election, because only one person will vote in each polling unit in the FCT area council elections. Secondly, we began the movement of election materials on time from the central bank. For this particular election, we have deployed 6 resident electoral commissioners to the 6 area councils, and they have taken control and they have taken charge of the election in these 6 area councils. We also deployed 3 national commissioners to take charge of a cluster of 2 area councils for the purposes of this election. And we have deployed and deployed well. We moved all the materials to the our local government offices yesterday, and by 3:30 p.m. yesterday, all the materials had left the local government offices to the super racks and the registration areas from where they were deployed at the first light this morning. Some of the, before I came to the studio, some of the polling units have already opened and people are already voting. So we are confident that some of the logistic challenges that attended previous elections will not be available in this particular election. So we have prepared, and we have prepared well.
If you can just give us a quick rundown of today's timetable, for those who may not have made up their minds to go out and vote, in the light of what, of course, you know, which is voter apathy and all of that, thinking even if my vote counts, nothing is going to change much. Let's hope that we'll begin from this election in the capital city to reverse that particular trend. What is the timetable today? When does accreditation start? When does it end? When does voting start? When does it end? And on like that.
Well, we are doing what we call simultaneous accreditation and voting. The polls have already opened at 8:30 this morning, and the polls will close at 2:30 in the afternoon. But any individual who is on the queue as at 2:30 this afternoon, we definitely vote. Even if the voting extends to Sunday, the person will definitely vote. Our appeal to individuals, especially registered voters, is that they should go out there and go and vote. We have made adequate arrangements in terms of security. We have also made adequate arrangements in terms of polling units that still have a large number of registered voters. Any polling unit that has up to 3,000 registered voters as of today, we deployed 2 beavers, and we have also deployed additional staff to take care of the queuing system at the polling units, and to also make sure that people do not stay for too long in any of the polling units. We have created additional polling units and taking the polling units closer to the people. Unfortunately, so many of our young people, especially those who registered during the continuous voters registration exercise, did not take the opportunity to assess some of these new polling units that we have created. And that is why, despite the fact that we created additional polling units, we still have a total of 593 polling units that do not have any registered voter as at now. Unfortunately, we did not want to disrupt the process in some of the polling units. That was why we did not use our power under Section 42 of the Electoral Act to compulsorily allot voters to some of these new polling units. But immediately after these FCT area council elections, we are going to allot voters to some of these polling units that are closer to them, so that voting will become much more seamless and simpler, especially for persons with disability, pregnant women, and other elderly ones who may not access long polling units in distant places. So I believe that with all the measures we have in place and with all the things we have put in place, people should have confidence that when they go out today to go and vote, that their votes will definitely count. This election is being conducted by the Independent National Electoral Commission, and in any election we conduct, Nigerians should be sure that their votes will definitely count.
Well, one of the things that I think many might find interesting right now is locating their own polling unit, especially in the light of what you just said now. So how do people locate exactly what polling unit is theirs? You've also hinted at the fact that the likelihood of the fact that some people's polling units might change after this election. So going forward, how do people identify their polling units, especially for those who may now, because of what you have said, decide to go out and vote?
Well, we have not disrupted any, we didn't disrupt any of the existing polling units. We did not move any voter from his or her previous polling unit to a new polling unit. We left all the registered voters in their previous polling units. It is only those who registered during the continuous registration exercise that we carried out and who chose some of these new polling units that we have new polling units allocated to them. And what we decided as a commission is that in any polling unit where we have one registered voter, we are going to deploy staff to that particular polling unit, and that individual who stands alone will definitely vote. But for the 5,903 polling units that do not have any registered voter, we are not going to print, we didn't print ballot papers for those polling units, and we did not deploy any staff to those polling units, and we do not expect any form of result for these polling units. Now, immediately after this election, we are still going to continue with the continuous voters registration exercise, but we are going to go and meet with community leaders, meet with religious leaders, and also meet with youth groups and women's groups in these areas where we created new polling units, and then educate them on the process of allotment and what we intend to do in relation to these new polling units, so that some of them can voluntarily choose the polling unit that is closer to them rather than walking long distances to the existing polling units to go and cast their votes.
Well, well, that's taken, Mr. Okoye, but I'm talking for those who have never voted, whether they are elites or not, who have their voter cards or voter slips, but have never voted. So how do they identify their locations, their voting polling units? They may have like 2 or 3 nearby them. So I'm just wondering, is there a short code? Is there a website or somewhere that they need to go that say, okay, this is how I know where I am supposed to vote?
Well, for those of them who registered, they must have registered in a particular registration area or in a particular unit. That unit where they registered is their polling unit. There's a possibility that in that particular registration area or in that particular polling unit, there may be 5, 6, 7, or 8 polling units clustered maybe in a primary school or in a secondary school or even in an open space. When they get there, we have some of our staff. Their VIN numbers are on the permanent voters register, and all the details relating to where they registered are embedded in their permanent voters register. So when they get to the school or to the polling unit where you have a cluster of polling units, there are some of our staff are there who will direct them to the appropriate polling unit where their names are and where they are supposed to vote. So they are not supposed to have any challenge whatsoever. For those of them who did transfer, for instance, maybe from Lagos to the Federal Capital Territory, if they did the transfer online, before they did the transfer, our portal will have directed them to the registration area where they belong or to the polling unit where they belong. And so they will choose on their own, they will choose the new polling unit where they are supposed to go and vote. So they don't have any challenge whatsoever in locating their polling units.
How about those who registered online? Can you hear me, Mr. Okoye? How about those who registered
I can hear you now.
Yeah. How about those who registered online, who registered, as voters online, just as INEC advertised?
For those who registered online during the voters registration exercise, what they carried out was what we call pre-registration. they were also required to go to any of our state offices or any of our local government offices to go and complete their biometrics. So when they complete their biometrics, they will now be issued with they will be issued with a slip that will entitle them to go and collect their permanent voters card. Our emphasis is no longer on distribution of permanent voters cards because previously, when we distribute, people will go and collect on behalf of others. Our emphasis now is on collection. If you registered, you should go and collect your permanent voters card that will entitle you to go and vote. So we have printed the permanent voters cards of all the people who registered, minus those who carried out multiple or double registration. All those who carried out multiple or double registration, we did not print their permanent voters cards. Rather, we quarantined their new registration because their previous registration is still valid. We want to remind Nigerians that multiple or double registration is a clear violation of the provisions of the Electoral Act and attracts sanctions. So at the end of this particular exercise, we are going to make a determination on what to do with those who voluntarily and willfully and maliciously engage in double or multiple registration, because it's a clear violation of the provisions of the law.
So what's the voting population that INEC expects for these Abuja council elections?
Well, for this Abuja area council election, the total number of registered voters that we file out today to go and vote stands at 1,373,492. That's the total number of registered voters that will exercise their democratic franchise today.
Well, historically, Mr. Okoye, what's the percentage of the voter population that has come out hitherto to be part of this particular election, and what would be your appeal?
Well, my appeal is that the registered voters in the Federal Capital Territory should come out en masse to exercise their democratic franchise. Area council elections or local elections are very, very important in the democratic life of any nation. If we do not vote in area council elections, the implication is that whoever is voted for, we are ready to live under that particular individual, or under that particular regime, or under that particular political party. I believe that the people who vote expect to get some dividends out of their votes, that their votes will have value, and that those they elect will definitely perform for them and also work for them. Now, historically, we've had very low voter turnout in the FCT, especially in Amak, the main city center. But in the other, in Buari, in Kwali, in Abaji, and the other area councils, the voter turnout is slightly high. But in the city center, where the elites live, we've had very, very low voter turnout in the city center. So our appeal is that people should go out and exercise their democratic franchise so that at the end of the day, we will learn valuable lessons that we can impute into the conduct of the 2023 general election. But for this particular election, we have deployed the beavers, and we have also deployed so many technical assistance, and also deployed so many redundancies to the area councils because we want to really test the robust nature of the beavers and to make sure that we get it up to speed for the 2023 general elections. So all eyes are on the FCT area council elections, and we are working assiduously to make sure that we deliver on our mandate.
Well, I was hoping to get some kind of percentage in the voting population generally, Mr. Okoye. You may also want to speak to the lessons. You spoke about lessons earlier. What would you say are the reasons why it would seem like the elites don't come out to vote?
Well, I will not speak for the elites because I'm not too sure I'm one of them. But,
come on, Mr. Okoye. Come on, Mr. Okoye. We know that.
the issue of voter apathy is a very, very serious issue in Nigeria. We've had situations where we have recorded very appreciable voter turnout in some states where we had almost 45% voter turnout. And we've also had situations where we had a voter turnout of as low as 5%. Now, you know, previously, there were some people who really believed that going out to go and vote is an exercise in futility, that their votes have no value, and that whatever they do, their votes will not count. But this particular commission have tried as much as possible to make sure that we reassure our people, reassure Nigerians that we have the courage and we have the staying power to make sure that when people go out to go and vote, that their votes count. That was what accounts for our creating additional polling units in Nigeria, to make sure that we take these polling units to the people and the congested polling units. But unfortunately, so many of our people have not taken advantage of these newly created polling units and assessing them. Secondly, we have also introduced the beavers and retired the smart card readers. And why we introduced the beavers is to make sure that only those who have valid permanent voters cards go out to the polling units on election day. We realize that there's a possibility that there are some permanent voters cards in the hands of people who are not supposed to have them. So with the introduction of the beavers, you go to the polling unit, we check your fingerprints. If we don't capture your fingerprints, we check your facials. If we don't capture your facials, we check the QR code on the voters register. If we do all these things and we cannot see you, the implication is that you are not who you purport to be. And we just simply ask you to leave the polling units, and you will not be captured, and you will not exercise your democratic franchise. So I believe that whatever misgivings people have in terms of the quality of governance, and also in terms of the other variables that make them not to go out and vote, they should go and exercise their democratic franchise. In terms of violence at the polling units, we have deployed adequate security to make sure that nothing untoward happens at the polling units. But as you know, and as I know, voting in any election should be an ordinary civic responsibility, without anybody locking down a state just for purposes of election, and also without anybody going out to go and vote, and then violence will be unleashed on the person. So let us move our elections away from this type of a situation to a situation where people will be happy to go to the polling units to go and exercise their democratic franchise, and then come home and wait for the results, hoping and praying that at the end of the day, that only their votes cast at the polling units will be the only determinant on who gets elected and who does not get elected.
Well, Mr. Okoye, you have to go back to that constituency that you say you are not one of them shortly. But let me get talking about going. Let me just give me a moment or two. Let's speak to our correspondent, Empress Simon, who is one of those monitoring the Abuja Council elections right now, to give us some kind of updates. Empress Simon, how's it been? And what's new?
All right, thank you very much. We are covering the FCT Area Council election across the 6 area councils. The election, as we know, is to determine those who will lead the area councils as chairman for another tenure. And also those who would serve as councillors for the next dispensation. So the election has begun across the 6 area councils, and we know that there are 62 wards in the FCT across the 6 area councils. What we have so far is that the election has begun in most of the polling units. However, in some of the polling units, election did not begin until about 9:30 a.m. For instance, we are at Buhari Area Council, where voters have turned out in their numbers to exercise their franchise. And we were at Tukolo That's unit 002 Tukolo unit, where voting did not start till almost about 9:40, and that almost led to some kind of disagreement or quarrel among the voters. We have also seen some issues with regards to the bimodal voter accreditation system. That's the BVAS, which INEC is using in this election. We know that in a number of states, INEC actually introduced BVAS, which was, I think, the second time that INEC would introduce the use of BVAS in election.
Okay, I'm pretty sure that we'll be able to get correspondent Emperor Simon back. Well, Mr. Okoye, I'm sure you've heard a few of the things that he said, one of which is the fact that the elections didn't particularly start on time at one or two polling units. Is there any reason for that? Logistics maybe, or what?
No, the report I've been getting is that in most of the polling units across the Buhari area council, because I'm supervising both Amak and Buhari, all the presiding officers and the ad hoc staff were at their various polling units to set up before 8:30. But I have taken note of this particular polling unit which he mentioned, where he said election started around 9:40. I'm going to find out what exactly led to that particular situation. But our assurance is that even if the election started at 9:40, we are going to make sure that every person who is registered at that particular polling unit gets the opportunity of exercising his or her democratic franchise. In terms of the issue of, he tried to raise the issue relating to the BVAS. In some of these congested polling units, we deployed two RATEX, our registration area technical assistance, to some of these congested polling units to make sure that if there's any issue relating to the BVAS, that issue will be resolved immediately. And even our registration area supervisors, we also train them on how to troubleshoot the BVAS in case there's any challenge. So I want to assure you that wherever there's any slight challenge with the BVAS, that we have the capacity to resolve that particular challenge as quickly as possible and make sure that it does not disrupt the voting process in any of the polling units.
Lastly, before we let you go back to work, Mr. Okoye, how concerned is INEC about some of the issues being raised by civil society organizations about one national commissioner or the other that has just been approved by the National Assembly? That, you know, maybe one of them is a card-carrying member of a political party or so. How concerned is INEC about that? As National Commission in charge of information and voter education, I speak for the commission. I do not speak for national commissioners or prospective national commissioners that have not come in. So I think that that issue resides with the National Assembly, resides with the presidency, and also it resides with the Nigerian people. But if any national commissioner is presently on seat and has been sworn in, and there are issues arising or relating to that particular national commissioner, then I can speak on behalf of the commission and give you the position of the commission in relation to that. But I'm going to ask that question. Mr. Okoye, I'm going to ask that question again. Just one second, Mr. Okoye. I'm going to ask that question again. How concerned is the Independent National Electoral Commission, the commission, concerning the issues being raised about the partisanship or not of one of the national commissioners that is coming to work with the commission? How concerned? Is INEC concerned or not?
Our position is that it is the work of the National Assembly, it's the business of the National Assembly to look at the qualification of those who will be appointed as national commissioners, and it is also within the remit of the president to nominate persons as national commissioners who meet the constitutional requirements. It has nothing to do with us as a commission. It has everything to do with the National Assembly and with the presidency and the Nigerian people. So as of today, we don't have any position on that.
Should an INEC commissioner be partisan? What is the position of INEC on that?
Well, no INEC national commissioner as of today that I know, and there are 6 of us, who has the registration card of any political party and who is partisan. So I speak for the commissioners that are on seat. I don't speak for persons who have not come in as national commissioners. That one resides with the presidency and resides with the National Assembly.
We're just getting information now that there is someone who transferred his polling unit from FCT to another state, Kogi State. How does that person get information about his new or her new location? How does that person, or where does that person get a PVC?
Well, there are 2 models that the person can use. The first model is that if the person did the transfer online, as at the time the person is doing the transfer, the portal, the person will interact with the portal. The portal will ask the individual where he or she is at present, and then where he or she wants to transfer to. If the person wants to transfer to Kogi State, the portal will interact with the person and find out the exact local government where the person intends to vote. The portal will take the person to that particular local government. From that particular local government, it will take the person to that particular registration area, and the person will choose the registration area. From the registration area, it will show the individual all the polling units in a particular registration area, maybe between 10 and 20 or 24 polling units. Then the person will choose the particular polling unit where he or she wants to vote, and then the portal will domicile the person to that particular polling unit and print a slip, and that individual will go with that slip to any of our state offices or local government offices, and then the person's permanent voter's card the person will also be given a slip after doing the biometrics, and then the person's permanent voter's cards will be printed by the Independent National Electoral Commission, and the person will collect his or her permanent voter's card, and then the person's polling unit and registration area will be domiciled in the permanent voter's card.
Well, Mr. Festus Okoye, INEC National Commissioner in charge of Information and Voter Education and supervisor of AMAC and one other polling unit. We have to let you go now.
I'm supervising AMAC and the Buhari for this particular FCT area council election.
Okay, we have to let you go to work now before, well, so that things will go as you expect them to go in order to be able to give that report that you intend to give to us. Thank you very much for your time this morning and all the best.
I really appreciate this opportunity.
All right, you're welcome. So, back to Emperor Simon. Hope we have him better now. Emperor? Okay, I understand he's not ready. We'll take a short break, and when we do have Emperor back, we'll bring him back. Until then, let's take a short break. We'll be right back.